What's good? What's good? Second video of the day today here. At least day meaning 24 hours. So this one I'm going to talk about how men and women have different biological timelines and responsibilities. So according to their respective biologies, men and women have different timelines and responsibilities. We kind of got fooled with the whole equity thing. To have a fulfilling life, men and women are drawn toward different things, actions, and time frames. A man naturally thinks long term, and a woman naturally thinks more short term. A man naturally thinks more about the community than himself, and a woman thinks about herself more. And this makes complete sense. Some of you guys get angry about it, but this honestly makes complete sense. Because it's a man's duty to uphold the community, and it's a woman's duty to ensure that she's healthy so that the offspring can be healthy. In our society, this manifests itself in general as men worrying about making money and philosophizing about things and staying abreast of current events and understanding the landscape, etc. For women, this means that they kind of worry about basically looking pretty, getting a providing male, and things like that, understanding other women and stuff like that. So their set of worries are kind of completely different than a man's set of worries, at least from a biological perspective. So women have their menstruation starting at around 14 to 15. Once this happens, they begin to understand their biological function, and this is when their quote-unquote clocks are ticking in the background of their lives. I don't really like that term, to be honest, but I guess, it's a term to use. It's a term that a lot of people in this sphere use. For men, it kind of takes us longer, on average, not all the time, but on average, especially if we go to college like myself. It's honestly not really until we start trying to make money seriously that we're exposed to the reality that women are exposed to a lot earlier, at around 14 to 15, just the reality of our biology in general and our duties as humans of the community. Usually, a lot of times there's an initiation process for certain cultures, for many cultures across human history, but in at least in this American culture, there's not really an initiation unless you have like your own family thing. Like I know Mexicans, they have a party for their daughters when they turn 15 and stuff like that. And then there's the whole Sweet 16 thing. But there's not really any societal initiation for getting ready to fulfill your duties to the community. There's mostly just different things that are capitalized on, basically. Like in this society, our path toward realizing our duties is basically capitalized on, pretty much. And if you want to call it an initiation, that is initiation enough. And then people get mad about that, like that. And then they try to capitalize on the next generation's coming of age, which is, maybe that's the initiation process, who knows. So for a man, his initiation process could be from 18 to 22 years old or somewhere around there, or even mid-20s for some of these people that go to college like myself, to be honest. I got red-pilled on this stuff, like literally from coronavirus. If coronavirus hadn't hit, it might have been even later for me, to be honest. So maybe thank God for corona, who knows. But obviously, depending on the initial family circumstances, some boys learn earlier, like around 16 or something like that. Like some of my friends, they've been working since like age 16. So, and unfortunately, those are like working class jobs. And because of the printing money, like we talk about, on this channel, like they got fucked. Like, it's just their purchasing power is getting fucked. Them as people, they you know, I think the earlier you start working and get used to that stuff, the better your life kind of might go for a little bit. But that's a topic for another day. In our society, over the past few decades, this biology has been confused. So women attempted to make money and stay abreast of current events and philosophies like men do. And which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? So was it we started printing money, then we needed those two-income households, or did women want to work and then money started being printed, and then they took out a lot of debt in order to like live the lifestyle they want? Like which came first? I wasn't born around that time, so I can't really speak on that. I just read about the history, and all I know is both things kind of happen: the printing money and women getting into the workforce as much as men, to the point where now they're actually, I think they outnumber men in the workforce in America at this point. So, and at this point it's not even really a competition with men because we've just been trained to do it. A lot of people didn't even know this stuff was weird until coronavirus hit. And some people, even, that was just for me, a lot of people, they don't even think of it as weird at all. And moving forward, there's probably going to be even less people thinking that it's weird for women to be that much in the workforce, like families to be pushed that much farther back into people's lives and things like that. People don't like believe in God anymore and stuff like that, so I don't even want to call it competition at this point. Maybe it started off as more some competition, but now it's almost normal. At this point, men probably need to compete a little bit against the women to get back into the workforce at this. Like, especially in those, like, some professions, like healthcare professions and things like that. I know from personal experience, because women work differently than men do, just straight up. The workplace is different when you have more women in there than men. Like, it's just different. You can't really, I might talk about it in a different video and just analyze it, but it's just, I mean, think about it, like, no room is the same when there's both men and women, when there's both men and women instead of all men or just all women. It's not even, like, imagine a whole workplace working like that. Like, things just start to make sense once you think about it that way. But basically, this left men with a much harder path toward finding a purpose in the community. And making money became a different kind of battle because they now had to, like I say, compete in here again, but at this point, is it really competition? They had to work with women, I'll just say that, in the workplace a lot of the time, and men and women work differently. So, men had to incorporate women's desires in their philosophies and in their current events. So they had to acknowledge the desires of women in areas where traditionally men would be competing for supremacy. So philosophers would be arguing against each other about the meaning of life. Now you add, like, women in there, which isn't a bad thing, but women's meaning often is having children. So whereas that used to be a domain of work for men, like they would work to discover the meaning of life and that would be their life's work. Now you incorporate women in that, and then now you incorporate their ideas in it, so it just confuses the narrative because the purpose, like, a lot of these things, men are trying to find the purpose of their lives, because women's purpose is more, it's clear. Like, and let's just be honest, a lot of these men, they try to figure out the purpose of life and all that stuff so then they can reproduce. Like, that's their path toward reproduction is using their brain to figure out things, to figure out ideas and stuff like that. So when women jump into the picture and you have to start incorporating the ideas of the women, then it becomes like it's not men battling for supremacy anymore. It's not that competition that carries forward the species. Like that might sound too arrogant. Like that kind of sounds arrogant. So, like to carry forward the species, but it's like men, they want to compete in order to reproduce. Kind of. I mean, it's part of their biology. So, like I'm not saying it's good to take into account all, and probably even the fact that we have women jumping in might be good in the long run too. So I'm not speaking on it as if it's a bad thing. I'm just saying how it's thrown off things to a certain extent, at least before, because we haven't gotten used to it yet. Maybe once we get used to it, it'll be different, but we just haven't gotten used to it yet. So in all this time, I'll try to wrap this up quick because the video's getting long. In all this time, the timeline of the genders didn't change. So you still have the biological timeline dictating certain things. So things became confused. Like I kind of said earlier, when the average man figures things out, he may be into his 20s or 30s. Just because it's gotten bumped farther for men too. It's just because of their confusion. But remember that this is still one of man's duties to understand the landscape. So once we understand this landscape, as we largely have in this community of like MGTOW people, red-pilled, whatever you want to call it, we can now move forward and keep the knowledge that the woman's timeline hasn't really changed. So what's basically happened is now there's just more things to stay abreast of and more things to understand before you come into your own. But at the end of the day, you still come into your own as a man in general. And with all this stuff happening, the timelines, like the responsibilities haven't really changed, and the timelines haven't really changed that much. They may have become confused, but they haven't really changed. So a woman's timeline, like girls and women still want a man that understands the landscape and fulfills his roles to society. Part of that is understanding the landscape. And they also still, as women, their like biological clock or whatever starts ticking at the same time, around 14 to 15. That stuff doesn't really change no matter what society throws at it. So we have to keep this in mind. And I'll just say this, like, I wouldn't be deceived by thinking you have to, Mason Brown says this in his videos. Mason Brown, you can check out his channel. I like his channel and I've been watching that recently. Mason Brown. Just because society kind of says this, like you don't have to get a woman your age, to be honest. And I don't even think you should, especially in this day and age. Yeah, and I'll just leave it there because with how things work in this society, I don't think you should, if you really want that family or whatever, if you still believe in that kind of thing, you should be looking younger. I think a lot of the problems that we have are because the timelines, like we're trying to go at the same time, like men and women who are both 20 are trying to do the same stuff, and that just doesn't work. Like any smart, like when I was graduating high school, there were some girls that just went off and immediately got married. They were 18. They immediately got married to dudes who were like 10 plus years older than them. And me and my friends at the time were just like, dang, what? Like, I mean, this is how blue-pilled we were, right? We were like, whoa, that's pretty early. I wonder why they're doing that. But it turns out they were actually the smart ones, to be honest. They were among the more smart ones, and they're also among the religious ones too. So it makes more sense to me now in my mid-20s. But when I was graduating high school at 17 years old, I was like, whoa, that's early. Like, that's how little we knew. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Alright, there you go. Healthcare Network. Like and subscribe if you enjoy that content and want to see more of this stuff. And peace out.